We have here today Suzanne Ross, who has kindly agreed to talk with us about her experience with Professor Girard and how she met him and what kind of impact Professor Girard had on her and her thoughts and her life. So thank you very much, Suzanne, for agreeing to do this conversation and interview with us today. And
oh, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So let me start off by asking you, how did you first hear about Professor Girard, and what drew you to him?
Well, we were attending a small UCC church at the time, not far from where I live right now, and our pastor started preaching what felt to me to be very unusual sermons, in that he was interpreting scripture in a way that I had never heard before, and that was answering questions that I had and that had been, shall we say, challenging my faith, to try and understand. Two big ones were, why is there so much violence in the Bible, seemingly orchestrated by God? And why did God need his son to die in this very sort of brutal way, in order to be reconciled to humanity? And so those questions had been challenging my faith, and I'd been sort of drifting away from confessing a faith in God. I really thought my church was lovely and they were filled with lovely people doing good things, but I couldn't really say that I believed in God anymore.
Wow.
And so Pastor David Owens started, as I said, preaching these sermons where the point of them was basically, all that violence in the Old Testament is there, but it's not God's violence, it's human violence. And the cross is violent, not because God needed his son to die to be reconciled to humanity, but that's what humans do. That's how we reconcile ourselves to one another, by scapegoating innocent victims, often to the death. And so that just sort of turned my head around.
Right.
And I just sort of went up to David and I said, where are you getting this stuff from? Because I never have heard anything like it before. And that's when, he was a very generous man and teacher, sadly passed away in 2003. But he sort of shepherded me into reading about mimetic theory and got me teaching in our adult ed classes. He gave me Gil Bailey's book, Violence Unveiled, and had me read it and teach it. And that's the way you learn, isn't it, Babak? When you teach something is when you really learn it.
That's true.
And so that sort of renewed my faith, and then set me on this journey of exploration of trying to understand more deeply what this mimetic theory thing was all about, and how it would lead to a different understanding of who God was and really who humanity is.
Right. So it's Gil Bailey's book that essentially started you on the course of understanding Girard's theory.
Yes. It was, it's one of those books that's called an introduction to mimetic theory, but it's hard. Only because mimetic theory is hard, because it challenges all the assumptions that you usually bring when you read something about autonomy and independence and originality and why we fight, why we come in conflict. And so it takes a couple of times through. It took me to read it a couple of times to wrap my mind around the fact that our desires come from outside of us, not from within, that we fight because we're the same, not because we're different. And until you can grasp these sort of basic ideas, it's almost like you're reading some alien literature,
Right.
It's hard to grasp. Once you grasp those sort of basic ideas, then you're on the inside of it, and it becomes much easier to follow.
And then from there, did you start reading Girard's book itself after Bailey's book?
Yes,
So
yes.
which book did you read first?
I read the first one, Deceit, Desire, and the Novel. And that took me a couple of years because I hadn't read any of I'd read Dostoevsky before and I knew Shakespeare, but I'd never read Stendhal or Proust or those guys. And so I would come across a novel like The Red and the Black that he was talking about. I don't understand what he's talking about. So I put the book down and I'd read Red and the Black and then come back. So it took me a bit, and most people probably wouldn't take that long to read the book, but I probably took me about 2 years. You know, I was a young mom at the time too with little kids, so I'll give myself a break there. Right. But you know, it was a fun adventure, I have to say. So
you became a real student of mimetic theory.
I did. And, you know, I began going to the conferences, you know, the academic conferences that discuss mimetic theory. That's the Colloquium on Violence and Religion, called Cover. And my gosh, the folks there were so open. I mean, I'm not an academic, but, you know, my pastor, David, said, let's go to this conference. And I was like, sure. And they were just so welcoming and open. And like I said, it just blows your mind when you're starting to learn this stuff. It's so exciting, I guess, just because it changes your worldview. And it, for me, just impacted my faith so much that I just couldn't stay away. So I just, you know, started reading more of Girard, but also more of the books that other people were writing about him, especially James Allison was very influential for me.
How so?
Well, James just has the way of reading a text in the same way that René could open up meaning in just a line of scripture. James does the same thing. He takes a text you think you're very familiar with and takes you inside of it in a way that you'd never been before. And so his whole concept that what Christ, he calls Jesus the forgiving victim. And he talks about how what changed the disciples was that Jesus came back in a resurrected body in a spirit of forgiveness, not in a spirit of retribution or judgment or even shaking the finger. You didn't understand me when I was alive. Now I'll have to explain it to you now. You know, that kind of thing. He just came back fully present with all of his wounds. Jesus, the signs of the cross are on his body, and yet it's not a spirit of vengeance at all. And that changed the disciples. It gave them courage, got them out of the locked room, you know. And so the way James talks about that, about the impact of the resurrected Christ, just helped me re-enter again faith in the resurrection.
Right, exactly. So during the time that you were at the conference at Cover, and you met Girard, I would imagine, during this time, right?
Yes.
Did he have a personal impact on you? Did you have an interaction with him that you can remember? A conversation that he may have had with you?
Yeah, he was a very kind and gracious person. And I remember I met him, probably, you know, shook hands with him for the first time, probably at the 2005 conference, which was in Germany, in Koblenz. But after that, I got so captivated with with Girard that I began to write my own material. And I was very insecure about it. But I managed to put 2 books together and sort of self-publish them. And we started the Raven website, where we started blogging and doing mimetic analysis of pop culture and current events and those kind of things. And I was fortunate enough to go to a small conference at Stanford, and René and Martha had a little gathering at their house afterwards. And I remember being there, you know, standing on his patio with a glass of wine. You know, you feel like you're at a rock star's house, you know. It's just very exciting. And he saw me, and he came up to me and just walked over and said, "I just want to tell you, I just love what you're doing. I just really appreciate it, and keep it up." And, you know, I was little.
You got the A-OK thumbs up from the master himself.
Exactly. And I think, you know, he was like that. He really loved to encourage people to take up his work and see where it would go and see where you would take it. And so he was just very generous in that way.
Right. And I've been following your blog and Raven Foundation since I met you. And you invited me to Raven Foundation to give a talk on Othello. I've been following you guys, and it seems you really have been dedicating Raven Foundation to mimetic theory and Girard's work. So can you tell me a little bit about your mission and its relationship to René's work and theory at Raven Foundation?
Yes, I mean, we've recently gone through a self-examination and reimagined our mission. And so what we're focusing on right now is really reaching out to folks who are leaving Christian churches, Catholic or Protestant, often for very good reasons, because of the stances churches are taking that are political and polemical and are wounding young people a lot. So we realize that a lot of that sort of reasons that people are leaving the church are reasons that my faith was failing. And right. My fellow Raven staff people, we all were talking about it and saying, if it wasn't for mimetic theory, we would have left the church, our own respective churches, a long time ago as well. And so we began to think that there's a lot of folks out there who are very dissatisfied and disillusioned with organized religion, but they're trying to find a way to hold on to God, you know, and to hold on to a way to read scripture that doesn't harm other people. And so we've sort of rededicated our website to what I would say is Girardian theology, or even Allisonian theology. James is our, you know, go-to guide in all of this, because René didn't really write. He wouldn't have called himself a theologian, although the way he handled scripture was amazing. So we're really trying to reach out to folks who have been wounded or who are just looking for a place where they can explore the nonviolence of God, the forgiveness and mercy of God, and God's love, and just be in a welcoming place.
Right. You're doing it with the Girardian theory of scapegoating, and that looks like.
Yes, very much so. Well, everything about how we read the Bible is informed by René's understanding of human violence, of right. how of how God needed to intervene in a certain way for us to understand our own violence.
Right.
And so that it just informs everything that we do.
The anthropological approach.
Absolutely.
The Bible, as René would say. So, right. And I see you've done mimetic theory for beginners on your website.
Yes. Yeah, we very much are focused on, you know, you don't have to become a mimetic theory expert or whatever. to benefit from this way of reading text. So I figure people could hear it the way I heard it the first time, not knowing where it came from or whose ideas it were. Right. They belong to, but they change your life. And then if you are interested in going deeper and learning more, we have that available for you, because I think people are curious, you know, as I am. And so we're trying to make it accessible for people, because most of this stuff out there is highly academic. You know, I just picked up this latest book, you know, can you see it? Mimesis and Sacrifice, Applying Mimetic Theory Across Disciplines. Who's going to read this? Only, you know, crazy people like me, or if it's, you know, your academic career. So we try and translate all of that stuff into, you know, take the jargon out and make it accessible.
Have you had any success? Have people responded positively in response?
Well, it is one of our most frequented pages on our site, is like our FAQs and our introductory material. It does seem to be a needed resource.
And you also have what I found on your website. You have mimetic theory Monday, theological Wednesday, something like that.
Thursdays, yes, we do Facebook Live conversations. On Monday, we discuss the latest blog post. We call it Mimetic Mondays. And then on Thursdays, we do a theological conversation.
Right.
So with Pastor Adam Erickson, who's on our staff.
So how's that going? Is that a good response?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it. It's a way to, you know, have some kind of live feedback and interaction, and we love getting questions and getting a dialogue going that way. So that's fun. And then people seem to be watching the recording afterwards and sharing it. So
wonderful.
It's fun.
Wonderful. Yeah. Excellent. All right, Suzanne, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Do you have any future plans for Raven Foundation?
Well, we do have a big event coming up in August. We're doing an online summit where it's so we're inviting people to join us for that. You know, in the days of COVID, you can't meet in person anymore, but we wanted, yeah, so we wanted to have a conference, and so we're partnering with Theology and Peace for an online summit in August, and James Allison will be one of the presenters, and David Dark and Audrey Assad is going to give a concert, and so we've got a nice lineup of folks
fantastic
to talk theology and mimetic theory. It's just
excellent.
What we love to do.
Excellent. And any books coming out for basic mimetic theory for readers interested?
No, just the stuff we're developing now is for the website, and we are working on a video introduction to mimetic theory, which is going to be very exciting, because it's going to be very, how would you say it? Not from the head, but from the heart. So to look at the impact that mimetic theory has on your life. So that's in post-production right now. So look forward to our upcoming videos.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Really appreciate taking the time to have this conversation with us, and look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
I do. I hope so, Babak. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much.